In a surprising and bold move, Canada and Qatar have signed a joint energy deal that completely cuts out the United States. No U.S. ports, no pipelines, no American refineries involved. This isn't just another trade pact. It's a direct snub to Washington, coming from two countries once seen as close allies of the U.S. Let's be clear. Canada is America's neighbor and longtime partner. Qatar hosts one of the largest U.S. military bases in the Middle East. These are not enemies. They're supposed to be friends. Yet they've teamed up to create a brand new energy supply chain that totally excludes the U.S. This deal is unfolding under a president who promised to put America first and make the U.S. the world's energy superpower. But thanks to tough tariffs and trade barriers, these longtime partners are now moving rapidly in their own direction. This isn't only about oil and gas. It's about global influence, economic power, your gas prices, energy jobs, and even the 2024 election. Losing control of energy trade has ripple effects that reach beyond oil rigs. It impacts Main Street, Wall Street, and it could hit President Trump hard at the polls. Let's rewind to where it all began. A trade war intended to protect American industry, but that ended up pushing its allies closer together. When President Trump launched his tariff strategy, the goal was simple. Protect American workers, punish unfair trade, and put America first. It started with steel and aluminum, key materials for cars, pipelines, and more. The aim was to hit countries like China, accused of flooding markets with cheap metals. But in the process, U.S. allies like Canada and Qatar got caught in the crossfire. In 2025, Trump doubled down on tariffs, raising import taxes on steel and aluminum. Canadian metal exports took a huge hit, even though Canada supplies much of the steel used to build U.S. energy infrastructure. At the same time, the administration added energy-focused tariffs targeting LNG components. Qatar, the world's top liquefied natural gas exporter, viewed this as a direct threat to its economy and its long-standing ties with Washington. Before tariffs, Canada exported over 3 million barrels of crude oil daily to the U.S. After tariffs, that dropped by nearly 18% as companies scrambled to find new buyers. Qatar's LNG exports to the U.S., already low, have become almost zero. For both countries, this was personal. Canada saw Washington switch from partner to punisher. Qatar felt more like a rival than an ally. Behind closed doors, both asked, why rely on the U.S. when we can rely on each other? This question sparked what Washington didn't expect. A deal that bypasses the U.S. market completely. Canada, a land of frozen forests and vast oil sands. Qatar, a sun-scorched desert peninsula rich in natural gas. They couldn't be more different. Yet in energy, they are an ideal pair. Their new deal is called a game changer. It includes billions in investments in LNG terminals along Canada's Pacific coast, joint shipping routes through the Arctic and Suez Canal, and new pipelines that send Canadian crude directly to global markets. No U.S. soil involved. Qatar, with its huge LNG shipping fleet and global network, will help Canada export natural gas to Asia at an unprecedented scale. Canada, with its huge oil reserves in Alberta and British Columbia, gives Qatar a strong energy partner outside the Middle East. Together, they're creating something Washington didn't believe possible. A fully self-contained energy supply chain that completely excludes the U.S. Imagine a map. Instead of Canadian oil heading south to Texas refineries, it moves west to Asia. Instead of LNG passing through U.S. ports, it sails east from Qatar, linking directly to Canada's system. American companies are cut out entirely. The deal is worth over $40 billion in the next decade, with projects already in motion. Some terminals could be up and running in less than 2 years. This isn't a future plan, it's happening now. Think this is just business? Think again. The fallout is already hitting everyday Americans. Big deals like this usually make business headlines, but the real pain lands first on regular people. Across the Midwest and Gulf Coast, refinery towns depend heavily on Canadian crude. These plants were designed to process Canada's thick, heavy oil sands crude, not lighter shale oil from Texas. Now, with Canada rerouting exports to Asia and the Middle East, some U.S. refineries face closure. Towns like Toledo, Ohio, and Port Arthur, Texas, where hundreds rely on oil shipments, are at risk. Early estimates suggest as many as 12,000 jobs could be lost if the trend continues. Then there's gas prices. You might think the U.S. has plenty of oil and shouldn't worry, but it's not just about supply, it's about competition. With Canada and Qatar teaming up to sell elsewhere, American buyers have fewer suppliers to bargain with. Energy analysts predict gas prices could rise 10 to 15% in the next year, not because there's less oil, but because competition is shrinking. When the Canada-Qatar deal went public, U.S. energy stocks tied to Canadian supply chains took a big hit. One major pipeline operator lost nearly $2.3 billion in market value within 48 hours. Investors hate uncertainty, and this deal brings a lot of it. So while politicians argue on TV, it's refinery workers, commuters filling gas tanks, and everyday investors who are left holding the bag. This isn't just about business profits. Canada and Qatar are making a statement. By cutting the U.S. out of the energy equation, they are redrawing the global energy map and sending Washington a clear message. Qatar has long played a delicate balancing act in the Middle East, maintaining strong ties with the U.S. while also working closely with China, Europe, and sometimes even Iran. But after years of feeling squeezed between American demands and growing Gulf tensions, Qatar is now making a bold pivot eastward by partnering with Canada. This deal boosts Qatar's status as the world's top LNG supplier and gives it a reliable Western partner outside the Middle East. It lets Qatar expand trade with Asia and Europe without depending on U.S. military or logistical backing. Meanwhile, Canada, after the Keystone XL pipeline collapse, repeated trade clashes, and Trump's tariffs, feels burned by the U.S. Many Canadian leaders want to reduce their dependence on American markets. This deal with Qatar offers Canada a way to sell energy globally without needing Washington's approval. This is not just about money, it's a political move. Canada is aiming to become an independent energy player on the global stage, and the world is paying attention. China, always looking to weaken U.S. influence, is interested in joining the Canada-Qatar energy network, especially if it leads to more stable UN-backed oil trade. Russia, isolated by sanctions, may see a chance to connect its Arctic resources to this emerging energy alliance. It's like a new energy axis is forming, Ottawa to Doha to Beijing, while the U.S. watches from the sidelines as old allies forge new bonds. This shift isn't just about supply chains, it's about global power. And for Donald Trump, it's a nightmare scenario. Trump built much of his political appeal on the promise that America would be energy dominant again. He shouted this at rallies and online, winning crucial votes in energy-rich states like Pennsylvania, Texas, and Ohio. But this Canada-Qatar deal undercuts that promise. States that rely heavily on oil and gas could lose billions if Canadian oil is rerouted away from the U.S., and if LNG buyers lock into contracts with Qatar instead of American companies. This threatens jobs, local economies, and crucial swing state votes, potentially costing Trump politically in places he narrowly won. Critics say the deal exposes a key weakness in Trump's America First trade policy. By slapping tariffs on allies like Canada and sidelining partners like Qatar, the U.S. pushed them straight into each other's arms. It's like trying to win a team game while benching your best players. History shows how energy crises can topple presidents. Back in the late 1970s, an oil crisis helped Ronald Reagan defeat Jimmy Carter. Now imagine Trump's declarations of energy dominance, alongside headlines about the U.S. being frozen out by its closest neighbors. The damage to American credibility is real. And with the 2028 election coming, this deal could be a story Trump can't control. Energy insiders say this deal didn't come from nowhere. Washington just wasn't paying attention. Canadian oil executives warned policymakers years ago that tariffs would push them to look elsewhere. It wasn't a threat, just simple math. Qatar had been seeking a long-term Western partner since 2018, assuming the U.S. had that spot locked down. But U.S. arrogance came at a cost. Leaked documents reveal Canada's frustration as far back as 2021, feeling cornered by tariffs, pipeline cancellations, and pressure to follow Washington's line, while the global energy market evolved without them. And Qatar's patience with U.S. demands on military cooperation, human rights, and trade has run thin. One Qatari official reportedly said, "That's no longer acceptable." These warnings were ignored. Energy economists say it was only a matter of time before Canada and Qatar found each other. What started as a trade deal is now a quiet rebellion against U.S. policies. President Biden inherited this tangled web of tariffs and tensions from Trump. Rolling back tariffs could help repair relations. But politics makes it complicated. If Biden moves too fast, critics may accuse him of weakness. If he does nothing, Canada and Qatar could grow even closer. Qatar may demand security guarantees or military cooperation to revisit the deal, dragging Biden into tricky Middle East diplomacy. Canada may push for broader trade agreements involving Europe and Asia, moving further from US-centered energy markets. Canada and Qatar might even bring in major EU partners to form a powerful energy bloc that sidelines the US further. At a time when global energy stability matters most, this could leave the US isolated. This story isn't just about oil or pipelines. Energy is a currency of influence, jobs, and political power. And the US just lost two of its closest energy allies. The deal could raise gas prices, cost American workers their jobs, and shake the 2024 election more than many expect. Will the US drop tariffs and try to fix these relationships, or double down and lose even more ground? What does this mean for your wallet and America's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, like and subscribe for more updates.